Welcome to Conversations with Kelly, where we sit down with business leaders across the state to talk about topics that are at the forefront of the business community. I'm Kelly Basil with the Delaware State Chamber of Commerce, and today's topic is workforce development. I have with me Scott Malfitano with CSC Corporation and also CSC Station. He also chairs the Delaware Workforce Development Board, and I also have with me Desa Burton, who's Executive Director of Zip Code Wilmington. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank
Happy
you.
to have you guys here.
Yes.
And you also know each other, so we're going to dive in and do a little bit of intros, but you have a fun connection with Zip Code, so I'm excited to dive into this.
Okay.
Scott, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do first.
So I work at CSC, Corporation Service Company, and also manage CSC Station, but also I serve as the chair of the Governor's Workforce Development Board here in Delaware.
That's great. And Desa, what do you do? Where do you work?
I'm the executive director of Zip Code Wilmington. It's probably the best gig in town. Zip Code is a nonprofit software coding boot camp.
And I will tell you, every time I've heard you say where you work, you follow up with it's the best gig in town, and I love that passion. You really do believe that, and I can tell.
Yes, it is.
It's a really cool project. And what exactly does Zip Code do?
So Zip Code takes an ordinary person and in 12 weeks can turn them into a software developer, whether they have a coding background or not. And by doing that, we're helping to build the economy of Wilmington. So as a nonprofit, we're here to help the tech workforce by training folks and getting them into great jobs.
And how long have you been in existence?
Zip Code's been in existence, not me, but Zip Code's been in existence since 2015.
2015, okay. And how many students have graduated since then?
Over 500.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's
That
incredible.
is. That is.
And do most of them get a job in Wilmington, or do they kind of go off into the world?
Well, they do a mixture of both. So we have anecdotally, about 75% of folks stay right here in the Delaware region, and other folks go to other places. And sometimes folks are working remotely, so they're here, but they're working with employers that are outside of the region.
And that has a lot to do with your partnerships that you have in the area.
Absolutely.
What organizations support Zip Code?
Well, I think it's publicly out there that JP Morgan Chase has hired over half of our graduates, but we also have M&T, CSC, thank you so much. A lot of smaller companies, large companies, KSM Technologies out in Pennsylvania has hired a number of our students. In fact, I think over a quarter of their workforce comes from Zip Code.
Wow.
But there are a number of other companies.
And Scott, this is kind of where you come in, but Zip Code was born out of the Pete DuPont Freedom Foundation's idea dinner, correct?
Oh yes, a long time ago, the Reinventing Delaware Dinners.
Yes,
And
yes.
It was actually Ben DuPont's idea. Yeah.
And he's still involved with the organization, correct?
Absolutely, he's the president of our board.
Great. But tell us about that dinner and how ideas come to fruition like Zip Code.
Because I think it's a great story for Desa to tell a little more about, the problem itself was, if I could just focus on why Zip Code, but we were all stealing each other's tech people. And so JP Morgan would take some people from CSC, CSC would take it from M&T would take it from WisFIS or whatever it might be, and we just had a real problem and a shortage of individuals coming that we could all find that were tech focused. And so a group of people got together, Ben and others, and decided, look, we can solve this problem. And actually they did. They said, look, can we get a bunch of companies? What's the baseline that companies need to hire individuals for tech-focused jobs? And individual companies got involved and then contributed the first monies at the setup. And then the big deal and one of the great successes of Zip Code and other really strong training programs is they have a job waiting for them at the end of the training. That's the key.
Now, we don't guarantee a job, but we do everything in our power to make sure that people get that job. We prepare them for it so that they're not just, meeting expectations on day one, they're exceeding them. They're adding value as of the first day. But the interesting thing I think about this story, because I wasn't with Zip Code when it first started. I joined Zip Code in October 2019, and I was helping get scholarships for veterans. So I was kind of a third-party friend of Zip Code for many years, a big admirer. But the thing I liked about it is that it's this partnership between philanthropy, private industry, and in the community, right? So it was really the companies all coming together saying, we need this thing. The workforce was there, they need these jobs. And philanthropy and private businesses said, we'll put the money in to create this training provider that can meet this desired goal. Mm-hmm. And with that, it became Zip Code Wilmington. Wilmington is not, that is a deliberate part of the name. Mm-hmm. I know that people sometimes shorten it to zip code, but Wilmington mm-hmm. is really the important part of that. That created this entity. This experiment worked because it was here, mm-hmm. right here in Wilmington. Mm-hmm.
And actually, the term zip code, zip was for speed, correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm. Quickly getting people into a coding job right here in this region. Mm-hmm. And, we've been invited to franchise mm-hmm. Zip Code Wilmington, and our board has turned it down because as a nonprofit, we were really here to support the community. So it's really not about, can we have a Zip Code Chicago and a Zip Code Cleveland? It was sure. really about, what can we do for the Delaware region? Mm-hmm. And so that's why we're still here. That's why we are definitely focused on the workforce development here. Yeah.
It's amazing what happens when all parties come to the table and mm-hmm. decide to solve a problem.
Yeah. And they're truly transforming lives. I mean, some of the great stories of Zip Code of individuals, a tow truck driver or a chef, whatever it might be, and someone just trying to just change their career. And after, they went through the program and the training themselves, actually, how many, is it 6 weeks?
12 weeks.
12 weeks, thank you.
Weeks, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a significant change. One, they've made a commitment, but number two is they've changed thetheir life mm-hmm. completely.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not just their life, though, Scott. It is the life of everyone around them. So if you have someone who has small kids, a new family, and everyone in their family has only made $20,000, so they only know that. They come to Zip Code, starting salaries are around $75,000. That's a game changer for their internal family unit and anyone in their family mm-hmm. that sees that change. So it's not uncommon for me to see cousins, neighbors, colleagues, managers. I had we have someone in the current cohort right now who's a manager of a graduate. And in the final interview, he said, "You took my best employee." So,
so he's here too.
He's here too.
Yeah.
That's great. That word of mouth is really amazing, and that's kind of where the Wilmington piece comes in. Is you're really
right.
transforming not only that individual's life, but the community around them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this wouldn't have happened without employers like CSC, like M&T, like JP Morgan Chase being 100% supportive of this. If they weren't hiring folks, if they weren't 100% involved in making sure the curriculum mm-hmm. stays current and they weren't engaged, this would have fallen away years ago. Mm-hmm. It is really, as a nonprofit, this would have gone away if we had not provided the right level of training for people in the jobs. We didn't provide quality talent for the jobs. Mm-hmm. Their success is our success. Mm-hmm. But then our success is the community's success.
Yeah, most definitely.
So it's really a
it's a very rigorous program that you're sending people through as well. It's not just, hey, I sign up and I can go to a coding program, if you will. There's a lot of steps and hurdles that those individuals have to go through. And we've been fortunate enough to hire several at CSC, and they've been just really successful individuals within our company.
Mm. Yeah, they're great people. And they're in the pictures that are here behind you. Just the years of zip coders that have come through. These are folks who would have been coding even if there was no zip code. We have people who have applied hundreds of times to jobs and didn't get in. They were trying to train themselves at home and they just couldn't get there. And they just needed just a little something to get them over the hurdle. And then we also have people that know nothing about coding. They practice a little bit of coding and they're like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then they just get hooked on it and they just come to Zip Code and in 12 weeks, there they are in this great tech career. So it is a long, rigorous process though. Like Scott said, I sometimes come across folks who are like, okay, I just signed my name on this form and I'm just coming in, right? Like I'm a zip coder now. No, that's...
You have to put the work into it.
Not how it works. But here's the reason why. It's 80 to 100 hours a week for 12 weeks.
Wow.
You have to be committed before you show up. Our application process takes at least 20 hours for someone to do it properly. So it starts with an assessment. Well, it starts with an application with your contact information. Then you practice a bit for an assessment. You take that assessment, and what it tells us is whether someone is a logical thinker. Can they get from A to B in 12 weeks? Not whether they know how to code, just how they think. If they pass the assessment, they go on to a group interview. A group interview is that's like probably the most fun part of the entire application process, just so you know. They go into a room with 4 strangers, or virtual room with 4 strangers. We'll do things like put random objects on a table and say, organize them and explain why. And they have to do it as a team. What that helps us see is, can this person work in a team? Do they talk over other people? Mm-hmm. Are they collaborative? You know, do they have a problem with this kind of person or that kind of person? And those things will show up. If they pass that, from there they'll go to a behavioral interview with me, or a whiteboard interview with our Director of Education, Chris Younger. So if you get through that whole process and you're in, you'll get a lot of work over the next 12 weeks, but it's a great outcome.
Mm-hmm. Kelly, would you mind, you asked a question before about reinventing Delaware and
Sure.
the DuPont. Can I finish with
Absolutely.
that way? Yeah. So, because I just got too excited about one of the outcomes of Zip Code Wilmington.
Well, it's nice to see the idea come to fruition.
Yes, most definitely. And there's been several that have. But really, we created years ago a program called Reinventing Delaware. Mm-hmm. And what we've done is we invited 100 guests, individuals, but there are guests to a dinner. And there was one ticket, and the ticket price was you had to come with an idea to make Delaware better. And so what we do is we invite those individuals, we mix people up at tables, 10 tables of 10, and there are individuals that are CEOs of companies, presidents of companies, executives of companies, but at the same time there's nonprofits, there's individuals, there's entrepreneurs and others that are involved, and we mix them up, and people that haven't met one another, which is tough to believe in little tiny Delaware, right? Because we all know one another, or someone knows someone. But then we have individuals, they go around and they have to give their idea within 2 minutes, they have to talk about it. And then there's the table conversation with 3 minutes. And then at the end of the evening, everybody votes on the best idea at their table. And then it comes with somewhat of a beauty contest, but at the end we take all 100 people and we identify the top winning ideas. And then everybody, all 100 people, vote on that top idea of the evening. There were a lot of really neat ideas that have come from it. Second Chances Farm, Zip Code Wilmington, Intern Delaware was one of the ideas. We had ideas that social impact bonds that came from it. There were just a lot of really great ideas, but it's a fun program, and it's something we're going to continue here in Delaware.
Well, and I think the biggest piece of the success of this idea is that you're bringing so many people to the table that are willing to collaborate. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how we move ideas forward and how we tackle problems, accomplish change. Yeah. And even now, as Zip Code's been running for so many years, you still work with your partners and others in the community to make sure that your curriculum remains relevant.
Yes,
you don't just build the curriculum and then teach it year after year. You're changing along with the needs. And I think that's huge.
That's absolutely, yes. And again, back to the employers being a huge part of the success of Zip Code. The chief technology officers and chief information officers sit down with us every year and they give us feedback on what they're seeing in the entry-level folks that they're hiring, as well as giving us feedback on our curriculum and letting us know what we need to add, what we can remove, what we need to think about. And it's at one of those meetings back in 2018 that they were mentioning this, we want data scientists. We need data scientists. Data, sure, the world is drowning in software, but data is the thing that companies need in order to be able to manage artificial intelligence, machine learning, the next generation. And within 9 months of someone mentioning we need data scientists, we created a data engineering program. Now it's a data engineering program because the data scientist is a PhD. This takes a lot of training. We can't create a doctor in Zip Code. Can't create a data scientist in Zip Code. It's just 12 weeks. Yeah. But we can create a data engineer. And a data engineer is sort of a sous chef to a data scientist. And we were able to figure out the curriculum, working closely with business partners that we were already connected with, as well as partners that are not in our network, so we can expand that and launch it with students in the program within 9 months. I mean, it's difficult to do that with a college or university because of regulations, but with a boot camp, we can meet the needs of the community very quickly.
And I think Desa just touched on it. Her little quick description was a lot what successful job training programs are needed. It's things we see at the Workforce Development Office, Department Board, if you will. But really, what is it? There's a job connected. Someone's training for an end goal, a job, right? But also, what industry is it in, right? It's training towards that industry. It's getting a baseline of that industry. So, it's not just as Desa just indicated, it was several companies, financial institutions, service companies like CSC and others, but there's a baseline. And I think that's very successful with a lot of the job training programs here in Delaware today. And one of the other major components of it is, it's that life skills training. It's anticipation. It's setting and helping people with expectations of what they're going to face once they get into the real world after those programs.
Absolutely. Scott is absolutely right. What's really important about the success of the zip code model is those common denominators. Like having employers that have a common need. Common languages were needed for the computer programming and data science, data engineering curriculum. Workers that want to do the same thing, that want to be in technology, that want to do this coding, want to do this data engineering, that have a bend towards those things. And I think with all those common denominators, we're able to put this together, and that makes it work.
And you both kind of set me up for my next question. And it has a lot to do with the work you're doing at the Workforce Development Board. But Zip Code is clearly a model that's working. And there are so many needs of employers right now. It is a dog-eat-dog world out there in terms of the labor market. And people are, fighting to keep their employees. And they're either not finding someone willing to work for them, or they're not finding someone that's qualified for the job. And so that's where you come in with the Workforce Development Board. How can we take something like Zip Code and maybe copy paste into another industry? What other industries in Delaware have those kinds of needs? You're probably going to say all of them.
They're numerous. The construction industry comes to mind. One of the things that's happening in Delaware, we're going to go through a construction boom here over the next several years. We're actually doing it now, but there's going to be more and more coming about. We need to take a hard look at that. Desa, others, have all gotten together and thought of unique, innovative, creative ideas, but to possibly help that industry, and then to continue to work on those. But we have a lot of different companies moving in with needs, from Wuxi moving in here, the needs at Amazon right up the road, and others. It's fascinating. The manufacturing industry has changed. I think that looking at history books, or when we grew up, we all said, oh, industry, it's these smokestacks, it's other things, it's, I'm coming out and I'm going to have coal on my face, or whatever it might be, or I got to wear work boots, or whatever it might be. It's not. Sometimes manufacturing today is going into a very clean, air-conditioned environment, and you're watching a lot of gears, dials, and buttons, and knowing what to push and code, which is most important. The world's changed. So we're looking at those types of industries, those ideas. We're trying to look at ideas that Desa and her team have done, that kind of structure. One of the great success stories here in Delaware is the Tech Innovation Council that's been put together. And it's bringing those companies together, bringing different programs like Desa's together here today, and working with one another to identify what our needs are in the state and what future needs are.
And it's important to note that Zip Code is a part of an ecosystem, right? We're not trying to replace a university, a college, community college, or any of those things. We're one of the tools that a workforce development board can use in order to meet the objectives for employers. So we can take something like, and this makes more sense than the franchise model, right? So instead of doing a Zip Code Cleveland, Zip Code Plano, it's more Zip Code, Zip Build, potentially. So
trades.
Applying it to the trades. We can apply it to labs. We can apply it to any of the industries if there is a common denominators between what the employers need and skills that can be trained. It can be done in a very specific period of time, and you've got a workforce available to do it. You put those things together, and you can have the zip code concept.
Absolutely. And Scott, you stepped into the chair role at the Workforce Development Board 7 months ago now?
It's about a year ago, September.
Okay, a year ago.
Yeah.
What has that been like since you've kind of moved into that role?
I've learned a ton.
Yeah.
We work very closely with the Department of Labor and Secretary Hubbard and her team, who are just a phenomenal group of people to work with. But one of the things that we did is we actually had a study done by a third party called TIP Strategies. And TIP, they helped with setting up the Delaware Prosperity Partnership, that public-private partnership, and looked at Delaware. And so they had a good awareness of our state. But one of the things we looked at is what are other workforce programs doing? Is we have to reinvent ourselves. And one of the things we found is that truly we weren't talking to businesses. We weren't listening to maybe what their needs were. You know, the Workforce Development Board, there's a lot of federal monies and state monies and grants that come in, and we look at how do we fund certain programs, you know, training programs that are out there and what industries are needed. But it's important to listen to the businesses. So two things that came about from over, I guess, since last September is one, we created a business development committee. And we have individuals like Mike Caranta, the president of the state chamber, and also Kurt Foreman, who's the chair of the Delaware Prosperity Partnership, on our board, on our committee. We're listening to businesses. We're looking at unique, innovative ideas. We're working with establishing these business liaisons that are actually going to just call, and this is some of the ARPA funding that's going to be utilized. Okay. These will be contractors that will assist us. We're going to call businesses. What are their needs? Other thing we've done is we've undertaken a study with a third party with a national firm called Zogby Analytics, and we're taking a deep dive into interviewing 500 Delaware companies and understanding what are their needs. You know, who's retiring over the next 5, 10 years? Who do we need to replace? You know, that's information. We need a real strong baseline. Other things we're taking a hard look at is, you know, do you need a college degree today? I mean, I think there's a lot of forward-thinking companies. We have to reinvent ourselves as businesses, especially with COVID and other things we all went through and the shutdowns, and now with inflation and other items. We have to reinvent ourselves and think of different ways to do business. And forward thinking could be, you know, well, we don't really need a college degree, do you, for that position? You know, but was that something that was inherent we believe we needed? You know, can we take individuals that from a second chance, some of those from our justice systems and others out there? Do we have individual training programs within our industry that work? You know, can we team up with other partners like Zip Code has? Can the financial institutions and the banks here in Wilmington get together to understand what needs are and create and identify programs or training programs that are out there and help structure them?
How many people sit on the Workforce Development Board?
There's 53 individuals that sit on it. That's a big
board.
It's huge. And they're appointed by the governor, so we have a number of individuals that at least half of the board itself are individuals from, you know, the Department of Labor, Department of Corrections, Department of Education, the unions in our state, and others appointed by the governor. And then there's, you know, basically a business group, but we all come together. We've been working very effectively. We're coming up with some unique ideas. We're tracking our results. I think we're going to have some stories to tell over the next couple of months.
That's great. And you mentioned data. We actually have another episode in this series that is all about data. You both mentioned it. It was about the need for data analysts, data engineers. By the way, I learned so much. I had no idea there were so many different types of data positions.
Oh, there are.
There's a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a huge thing. But having data to be able to make educated decisions is huge, and I think it's really great that the Workforce Development Board is really taking that deep dive so that we can really truly know where we need to go, what areas to focus on first, and really create some good.
Definitely, I think we do. And I think, again, as we talked, some results are coming in soon. We're learning a lot. Again, Zogby, this company that we're utilizing, is a national company that's done a deep dive. So we're able to break questions out by the banking and financial industry that are asking questions, the construction industry and trades that are out there, educators, others, and really kind of taken a deep dive into the specific segments or marketing segments in our state, or companies out there that we need. I'm messing this one up. I'm going to cut that one. But individual business sectors is really what we need to focus on.
Have you, and either of you could answer this question, because I know you really don't just work for just a bank or, you know, CSEs and services. You're really supplying talent to all sorts of industries right now.
Right.
But do either of you see any specific industries that have kind of the greatest needs right now?
Wow. You know, I do believe everybody is really struggling and searching for assistance, but we are going, this construction trade is vital. The trade industries, everything from, you know, the electrician to the construction company to the laborers that are out there, that's really important right now. That's important. And those are individuals we can get into those jobs with the correct training. You know, one of the unique things that we found out of the Zogby study that to share is that, and we looked at a lot of deep data, but some of the questions that came about were, what are the most difficult things that you're not able to train for? And 4 of the items that came out, one was self-motivation. I'm going to read from here, but self-motivation, communication skills, problem-solving, critical thinking, and attention to detail.
All soft skills.
Okay, all soft skills. And, as companies, again, with these training programs that are coming about, you can train towards a specific need, or, I can push this gadget, or I can code this, but we need individuals to come into the offices, into the workplace, put down the cell phone, show up on time. I mean, we've got to change the way people think. Some people have been out of work for a couple of years, and it's a real dynamic shift that we're taking a look at. Now, the other thing is fascinating about those components, or those lists that we shared here, is a lot of people will tell you that's the same things that were difficult to train for 20, 30, and even 40 years ago.
Interesting.
Right? So what's changed? Have the managers changed? Have the workers we've changed? And is there a disconnect by the way we communicate? That's possibly there. And there's a lot more to investigate on that and learn from.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And with Zip Code, we do focus a lot on that as we send folks out into the workforce, because we don't just want them to get a job and then lose that job. We want them to get a job, stay in the job, and continue to grow within the industry, and one day be the hiring manager that comes back to Zip Code to hire more. And that is actually happening. We have folks from the previous years that are now hiring managers that are coming back and bringing in Zip Coders to their teams. But so Zip Code focuses a lot on the training aspect. As a training provider, that's what we do with teaching people to code or do data engineering, but we're also teaching people all those soft skills. It is just as important to capture those while they're here in those 12 weeks. So we're giving them the resume training, but we're also giving them interview training, like really breaking it down, figuring out how to answer, in particular, specific questions in the interview, how to prepare for the interview, how to change their focus about the interview. Typically someone who may not have any training will go into an interview and ask questions about what are the benefits, how many days off do I get, right? It's all the me kind of questions. And we're like, you're not the center of the universe in that interview. Not until you get that written offer. You're not the center of the universe. So you need to go in and ask questions about their tech stack, what their team is doing, what the company has done, researching the company, finding out more, showing that you have the attention to detail, showing that you have the motivation, showing that you have the desire to advance and to contribute. So all those things you're mentioning, we're really emphasizing those things as well. One of the fun things about Zip Code is we have on our staff a theater major who with nearly 20 years improv experience, and he's our professional development coach.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, he puts improv into the curriculum because improv teaches you how to actively listen. And that's a problem that I think a lot of folks have in going into interviews and into these environments that you're mentioning, Scott.
I'm curious, how did you find each other to know that this was going to be a good partnership for him to come on board?
Well, he just applied for the job, and he had that added skill. And I think it was a part of him, so he wanted to incorporate that into the curriculum. And I said, go for it. Let's really run with this. And it has really helped out. And it's helped folks that have, who are anxious and nervous. It's giving them coping skills in going into interviews. Some of our quiet folks at Zip Code have gone on to be scrum masters, to lead teams, because they learn that coping skill of how to deal with their anxiety and how to be in a team and trust and communicate well. But I mean, I think that takes us a little bit off the subject there, but yeah, those are all things that are super important for Zip Code, and that's, I think, one of the differences I'm hearing from employers is our folks come in with that added attention to detail, the motivation, the listening skills, the communication skills.
No, and I really don't think that takes us off topic, because I will tell you from the Chamber's perspective, that's something that we hear from our members all the time, is that they're struggling to find employees with those soft skills. And there's a stat by, forget, maybe LinkedIn, that says, it's a high percentage of hires don't work out because they don't have the soft skills. It's not about the hard skills of the job. They can do the job, but they don't necessarily vibe with the team or communicate during challenges, and that's when it doesn't work out. So having a full service program like that, you're really setting them up for success.
But also it's a time too when we learn data like this, is that let's communicate with our educators today and our school system so that we understand what the future looks like. We've got some great programs with the Pathways programs that are up and running here in our state. let's communicate the information we're learning with them as well. And I think, it's a win-win for all.
Now, you mentioned a Pathways program in Delaware is kind of a national case study. It's one of the best in the country. We have hundreds of pathways, am I correct?
I believe so, yeah.
And that's a program that has really been built out, but they also work with employers too, the educators and employers together, so that they can, again, develop curriculum, to check in with each other, make sure they're both helping each other.
And I think it's giving individuals that are in high school, and they're actually talking about going to the middle schools now, but what do things look like? Where's opportunity? People do ask, well, how much money do you make or whatever. Those are the kids, the high school kids, one of the first questions they ask, but how long is it going to take me to get there? And there's a lot of wonderful job programs or jobs out there today in the trades that someone can make a wonderful living on, support a family, and contribute back to our society. And I think those are the kinds of programs we need to really focus on and help our young students make them aware of it.
Yeah, and that early exposure is key.
Definitely.
Yeah. And the trades and most jobs all incorporate tech now. So I think some people have the idea, this impression that going into the construction trades means I'm going to be standing outside in the hot sun digging a hole, right?
Yeah.
And that is really not what it is anymore. Tools are sophisticated. They require knowing technology. Even in building,
Exactly.
Doing the modeling, exactly if there's a conflict between third floor electric and duct work before you even pour the foundation. So there's a lot of technology.
And people are
involved
walking
in that.
through a 3D imagery of the building. It's what is that? Oh, you really need to move that wall, or that pipe's in the way, or whatever it might be. But it's amazing, and it's saving a lot of time and money.
Yeah.
Right.
That tech even extends to agriculture.
Yes.
The amount of tech that's in that sector right now is incredible. Some of the tractors, I'm not even going to quote because I'm not in agriculture, but they measure soil and when things need to be watered. And again, to the point of data, you're working smarter, not harder. And that use of technology in all the sectors is important, which means that everyone needs to learn those tech skills.
That's right. That's right. And so the amount of software, it's amazing. I'm looking at this in this role. I've never really looked at it before, but in coming in this role, the amount of software that you need to know in order to be effective in those environments where you're trying to analyze the amount of rain in a particular square inch of soil, or, understanding how to put on, Oculus goggles to look around a building, it's really small. I mean, compared to the 12 weeks that we're teaching here, we're talking like 3-4 weeks or even less. I mean, it's really small. But one thing that we have done is create a pipeline. We're talking about these pathways. So I don't know what all the pathways are, but I can tell you, I do know about the computer science pathway. At Zip Code, during COVID, we launched a front-end software development program statewide in the Delaware high schools, because Delaware is one of the lowest states in the region as far as having access to computer science education in the public schools. And in doing that, my intention was just to give more awareness and exposure. But after having launched that, we now have a way of not just having, teaching in the high schools, and then we have an instructor that teaches at Wilmington. Now we're putting those two things together so that people, if they want to become a software developer, you don't have to go to college. You can do the Blue Note program in high school at William Penn, apply to Wilmington, get into their free program, have 6 months of software developer training, and then have an internship at Bank of America and have a full-time job. And within a year of leaving school, now you're a software developer making $50,000, right, a year. And this is something that we're offering to folks here in Delaware. I don't know that this is available in other places, because our community has really, just like you said, Scott, really started pulling things backwards, analyzing the problem and breaking it down and trying to figure out solutions. And I think by having all these solutions and now plugging them in together, we're starting to close those gaps.
Something you said that struck me was that some of the skills needed don't take a 12-week boot camp or a 4-year degree. It can be a 4-week certificate program. And that kind of gets into the conversation of stackable skills and upskilling people. I'm curious, And Scott, you might be able to answer this since you talk to so many different industries, but is there a need for stackable skills here in Delaware in a particular industry or all industries?
Can you define stackable for me? Just want to make sure I understand.
Sure. It would be, and maybe you'll actually be able to define it even better in the tech world, but, kind of getting a certificate on this program and then building upon level 2 of that program.
Well, thank you. I mean, one of the things that's happening in our high schools today is people are walking in with programs, whether it might be learning basics and needs of nursing or it might be for construction, whatever it is. They're able to take those certificates that they've been given and get college credit for it or go to Del Tech and do other things. So that's been a real advantage there. So in the trades themselves, that definitely exists. And, I know for talking to Marquivas, for example, and his program.
At Nerd It Now.
At Nerd It Now, exactly right. The way they have done with their training program, for so many days, it's 30 days or so, and then he identifies individuals that they invest in further. So yes, stackable, continuing education, whatever it might be. But I think there's a real opportunity out there for it. The other thing we're finding is individuals themselves, they're self-identifying and say, I want to continue, right? I mean, there's got to be that that self-motivation that's there. An individual's got to want this, right? It's not like when we went to school, it was like, okay, you're going to open this book at this page. No, they have to start doing this and want to do it.
Sure.
That's right. And, the thing about coding that Chris Younger, our Director of Education, always points out to the students is when you come across a difficult problem, start breaking it down into pieces, right? And I think when Zip Coders come in, they think to themselves, I want to get this skill in this 12 weeks and get this job. But we point out to them, if they don't have a college degree, start thinking about how you can solve that problem too, right? So you start with Zip Code, you can get 16 credits. Wilmington University provides 16 credits to our graduates for the program that they just completed. You get a job with a great employer like CSC, now you have education benefits. Those education benefits can pay for your tuition to finish up your degree at Wilmington University or at UD or whatever school that you want to go to. Now you have more options. So I think that, I forget what my point was, but I'm just going to
But going on there.
It's all good information.
But there's, programs, just as you said, I mean, there's other programs out there like Seed Plus and others that our state legislature is focused on. But there's monies out there for training that companies can utilize. There's on-the-job training programs that the Department of Labor sponsors. So you're exactly right. I mean, there's a lot of tools out there for businesses today to utilize. And I think, to help focus on...
How can businesses find all of those resources?
The Department of Labor is a tremendous resource to reach out to, and Secretary Hubbard and her team are there for everyone. One of the things we're trying to do is, and you asked a wonderful question there, is with our business liaisons, we need to get that information out and be more proactive, right? We've got it, and everybody's... You can go to how many websites? You can go to Delaware.gov and really fish through. There's so much information there, but we have to start pushing information to individuals.
Sure.
One of the things we've talked a little about, and we're working with the Philly Fed, but can we be innovative in Delaware? Can we do some unique, different things here? And so one of the things they've got an occupation mobility tool, web-based system.
I love that tool.
It's wonderful, and really what it does, you can go online. And you say, look, I'm looking for an opportunity. I don't know what I want to do, but I want to change in my career of some sort. And so really what that tool does, you can go on there and you can say, look, what am I? I'm a receptionist. Okay, well, I don't know what I want to do. Well, you have to multitask, don't you? You have to communicate with people. In many cases, you're the frontline person. You're the one taking some of the negative phone calls that might come in, or positive phone calls, a sales, whatever it might be, and getting to the right people. That individual tool says these are the trades, and guess what? Here are the positions that have similarities to what you want to do. And really, one of the cool things about it is it shows that any job they post there, it's 10% over what the salary you say you make today is. So it's a way to use technology to help people get a leg up. What we're trying to do is maybe take it to a different level.
Okay.
Can we create an app? Can we be the first state in the country to create an app that an individual can go on and it'll ask them questions? What do I want to do? I want to upskill. I want to get into the marketplace and the job force for the first time. I've really never been involved before. I'm looking for additional training. And then it'll ask you another question. What industry? Okay. Manufacturing, plumbing, whatever it might be, banking. And then it'll ask you, what zip code are you in? and then it'll push information for all the job training programs that are out there. Or it'll push you to Delaware Jobs link to show you where current jobs are today. But we're going to aggregate and pull data based on where you are and programs that are out there. We could be the first state in the country to do this.
You're basically describing meeting people where they are, and that's huge.
Most definitely. Most
Very
definitely.
cool. Well, I can't wait for the app. So I feel like you put it on the record, so now it has to happen.
Oh, we're working to try to get some funding for it. One of the great things too is, with this ARPA money, the American Rescue Plan monies that come into our state, which is pretty significant. Governor Carney has earmarked $50 million towards workforce. This is a once in a lifetime, once in a generation investment that we can make into our future workforce. So far, out of the 50 million, about 31 million of it has been appropriated to certain programs that are out there. Everything from pathways to some of the coding programs like Code Differently, to Zip Code, others that are out there, and others. But we are taking a look at unique, innovative ideas. The funding of this app is one of those ideas we put in there, and we're waiting to get a response back. So potentially, that's where the business liaisons came from. That's where the Zogby study is coming from. So we have really tremendous opportunity here to kind of shape our future.
I think that's a really great idea to do, because as a nonprofit, putting money towards marketing means I'm not putting money towards training, right? So a lot of the training providers out here, we're putting all of our funds into building awareness within the community, but it's great to have it come from a central place. I often get the question from folks that I meet out at job fairs, or we like to go to farmers markets. We like to go anywhere where there's just ordinary folks that don't know anything about software and just talking to them about it. And the question I get is, well, what does a software developer do? What does their day look like? Do they sit at a desk? They just can't envision it. And I don't have the funds to be able to build that awareness, the campaign that I would like to do as a small organization. But to be able to pull all those funds together and do it so that people now are driving towards, applying towards Zip Code with an idea of what they want to do, and I can keep the funds for training.
An example of our career mobility app, if you will, is it would indeed just do that. It would push individuals to Zip Code, to Code Differently, to others that are looking to do that training. Our board, we evaluate and examine where a lot of investment has gone over the last several years for funding, state, federal funding. Some of it goes to children and youth, some of it goes to adult dislocated workers, whatever it might be. They're earmarked. The federal government earmarks what categories that funding could be applied to. So we identified, and we have individuals, different training programs that apply for those monies, right? One of the things we're really taking a hard look at and examining is, tell me about the ROI. We didn't spend it. We invested in this. We invested in these programs. We're investing in Delaware's future. What's the ROI? What's the return on that investment?
Right.
How many people moved into a job from it after they were successfully trained? Let's continue to fund those programs that are just, hitting the strings off the ball, right? Let's continue to do that.
And also the ones that people are most being directed towards, because there's clearly a huge need there. Again, data. You're seeing exactly where the greatest areas are of need. What's working, what's not working, and then we can make educated decisions and continue to make those improvements. We're almost out of time.
Okay.
I told you it would be a fast 40 minutes. So you each get a closing comment, and you got to make it profound.
Profound. Oh my gosh.
No pressure.
Well, we're helping to build the economy of Wilmington one coder at a time. And we've done that with over 500. It's here for the community. We're here to support workforce development in whatever way that we possibly can. We're open to new ideas and suggestions. Technology is in every aspect of our community now. And so, however Zip Code Wilmington can help with workforce development, we're here to do that. But really it comes down to, how are we helping Delawareans? And that's what we build off of.
Thank you for the work you do.
Thank you.
Kelly, I think, the Workforce Development Board, we're going to have to take a hard look at a number of programs. And I think the first state, we need to be the first at several things. I think we can be the first to create this statewide app that is focused on career, lifting people and individuals up. I think we can be the first to have a statewide co-op program too. We've got a great program called Intern Delaware now that the state chamber utilizes, and it's very strong. But we can be the first state in the country to have a statewide co-op program. And I believe something like that's going to come to fruition over the next several years. And we're working closely with Delaware State University on that. And I think we could be the first.
I think when it comes to the conversation of workforce development, Delaware's size is its strength, and we really can accomplish a lot. Scott, if our listeners wanted to get in contact with you, how can they get a hold of you?
Sure. Would be pleased to chat with anyone, but it's Scott.Malfitano, it's a long one, at cscglobal.com.
And Desa?
It's Desa at zipcodewilmington.com, and that's Desa, D as in day, E-S-A.
Great. And if you didn't catch their emails, you can certainly reach out to me at the Chamber. We are happy to connect you to either Scott or Desa. Or if you want to get in touch with me, my email is kbasil@dscc.com. The Chamber is also on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We are accepting ideas for other conversations for future episodes, so we are all ears. We want to know what the business community wants to hear about. So thank you both for joining us today. Desa, thanks for hosting us here
Absolutely.
at Zip Code in downtown Wilmington at the Mill. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Great
you.
to be here.